Welcome to Love and Lattes, the podcast designed for women who are ready to stop settling and start living a life full of authentic love, confidence, and real connection. I'm your host, Victoria, the self-love scientist, speaker, and coach, and I'm here to help you reclaim your power, deepen your relationships, and fall unapologetically in love with yourself. So grab your tea, your latte, or your favorite beverage, and let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Love and Lattes. I'm Victoria, the self-love scientist, and I am sitting in this space today with a wonderful being. I am going to speak with Cynthia Perry. Cynthia is the creator of Embracing Grace, which was created to help individuals find their own voice while navigating the world of separation and divorce. Cynthia was married for 20 years, separated at 16, and divorced at year 20. While navigating this process of what feels like being alone, Cynthia wanted to create a space for others to have someone or something to lean on. That's so beautiful. Welcome, Cynthia. Welcome to the Love and Lattes podcast.
Thank you, Victoria. I am so honored to be here. Thank you for having me as your guest.
Absolutely. I had the honor of meeting Cynthia in person a few years ago through networking. And it's just been such an honor because we were both in very different areas of work almost. And now we're really stepping into these other areas where we're able to create these spaces of like for others navigating.
That's right. That's right. Um, it's been a couple years now.
I
I think
know.
it's been at least two or three. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Cynthia, I'd love for you to share, if you're open to it, what does embracing grace mean?
Wow. So, Embracing Grace really wasn't the name of my business in the beginning. It was called Millie Grace, and it was kind of an honor and ode to my mother, whose name is Mildred. So my son calls her Millie sometimes for short. So I was like, I can honor my mom who's always been a servant. She was a nurse by trade, and even after retiring, she just continuously gave back. And grace is, of course, God gives us grace. We all kind of know that verse from the Bible. But I had a aunt, and she played an important role in my growing up. She told me early on, you have to live your own life. No matter what your parents do or say, your life is yours to live. Now, I don't know if she realized that I would carry that on to this day, but her last name just happened to be Grace. So that's where Grace came from. So fast forward a couple years, and when I was going through this journey of how am I going to give back and help others, I felt like the first thing we need to do is give ourselves some grace. So that's how I said if we embrace grace, um, that could be part of the beginning of someone's first step to healing and moving forward. So embracing grace, that's how it came about.
That's so beautiful. And I love that you have this deeper connection with your family in relation to the name. That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
So with embracing grace, and you mentioned you bring up grace, like having, I'm trying to think of like the way to say this, but basically, because you and I were in very, like, we both experienced divorce and separation. And
hmm
I feel like opening up space to have grace come in just wasn't, I think, in the front of my mind, because we're completely in a way like we're stripped down from this relationship and now survival kicks in and now we're just trying to make things work. What would you say are ways where we can allow grace to come in during this, very vulnerable time?
No, you're right. And it is a process because even for me, it was a process because you are, and you don't want to sound selfish, but you really are just trying to survive. You're in survival mode in the beginning, I think. Like you say, you're stripped down, whether it's emotionally, financially. Um, you're trying to find your way if you have children involved, and and then depending on how the separation begins. So for me, I was the one who left the home. So that made it hard for me emotionally, financially, and so I wasn't giving myself grace in the beginning. It becomes, I think it kind of shows up once you're at your peak of, I don't know what to do anymore. And finally, well, for me, yeah, I was just at my wit's end, I guess. And so 2016, it was pre-COVID, but once COVID hit, that's where it was like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. What am I going to do? So that's when I found my own therapist and coaching. And the first thing I remember him saying to me was, it's not your fault.
Mhm.
Give yourself a break, give yourself some grace. And that's when everything shifted for me. So yeah, you're right. In the beginning, it's tough. And you're not being self-centered, but you really cannot focus on anything but yourself at that moment in time. So yeah, that's how it happened for me.
Wow. I really appreciate you sharing this. And I think it's amazing when sitting in a space with someone and just sharing this word, which, I'm sure people listening are like, oh, Grace, that sounds so easy. It's like, no, 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 you don't understand. Not when you're in it.
Not when you're in it.
Not when
No,
you're in it.
no.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my reasoning for beginning the journey of embracing grace because it just wasn't there for me in the beginning. So I want to create a space for someone who's actually going through it. You may have friends, but sometimes you don't want to tell your friends everything, or you don't want to feel like you're burdening them because they may have their own things going on. And so yeah, it's just a lack of resources maybe that's out there, or maybe I just couldn't find it at that time. But yeah, I just wanted to create a space where people can come and safely, whether it's how they're feeling at the time, whether they really need someone to hold their hand through the process, or they're kind of at the end of it, but you're still triggered sometimes. Like even now, so I spent most of my married life in Woodbridge, Virginia, and sometimes I'll go to Woodbridge and it'll trigger for me sometimes, you know. So yeah,
I think that's a great idea because you're right. When we're in it, and I can completely relate, we're sitting in that moment where for me it was a lot of shame. It was like I can't talk to anybody about this because it was such a picturesque looking marriage. And now that they know that we're no longer together, they're like, there was those, how could you? Or, there's not going to be anyone else and you're selfish. And it was so hard to actually rely or even feel like I could talk to anybody about this. So it was like, nope, I got to navigate this. I'm going to be hard-headed and I got it. But it's emotionally overwhelming and it's depleting. And then the moment, like you said, when we get to the very, like getting to that point where it's like, I don't know where else to go or my health
yeah.
is a little, tight.
Hmm.
Like for you, that's when you realize you're like, I'm going to go see a therapist. And I think
Hmm.
being able to connect with someone or be in a space before that even happens would be very valuable. And I think a lot of people listening, whether they are in the divorce process or breaking up or separating, it's it can be like when you hear me saying this, like trust me when I say it feels so good to know that there is someone out there who can relate to what you're experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like having a best friend. um, when you really can't tell your bestie or your
Yeah.
or whoever. Hmm.
There's such a it's hard because it becomes a comparison game. I think that's what a lot of like women especially end up experiencing because it's like, I have this marriage and this picture and now all my other friends are married and whatnot, or they're doing really well in their relationship, why me? And I guess from that, would you say that's something you think a lot of women are feeling in this experience?
They probably are. You're probably right. Some women may be feeling the shame and the failure and the still comparing themselves to the people who may or may not be still in a happy marriage. But, people may be, like you said, in what they think is a perfect marriage. Because I had the same thing happen to me. A couple of people said, I thought you all had it right, I thought you all were getting it right. So, there, there, there is a lot of shame that comes with it. And for me, also, I had to think about my son too. And also the me being a person of color, there's an aspect to that as well, being a what people think is a single parent. So I consciously made an effort to say I'm co-parenting. His father is there. The marriage may not have worked out, but he's a great father. So I had to make sure I kept that aspect of it. So yeah, it's a lot that goes into it. If you really if you really think about it, if you're really conscious of it.
No, I think that's wonderful, and thank you for sharing that. When you
Sure.
when you started therapy, and then from that point forward, what were other ways, or how did you know when it was like, nope, I need to be graceful with myself? People listening might be like, oh, how do I know what I need to give myself grace in this hard time?
That's a good question. For me, it was just stop beating yourself up. Um, because it takes two, right? Um, you go through the blame game too, blaming him for whatever went wrong. But I had to realize that it takes two, no matter what I think, something had to break down for me as well. And I just remember being in church one Sunday, and the pastor said, think about that person that you need to apologize to, whether you were wrong or not. Just apologize, send a text and apologize. And he was the first person that came to mind. And I sent the text and I said, I'm sorry for my part in the demise of the marriage. I, Let me tell you, that is so freeing and liberating. When they say forgiveness is for you, it's true. That was another step that I felt, I can move forward again, giving yourself grace again for your part of whatever broke down in the relationship, whether you know exactly what it was or not. And then I can stop blaming him for what I thought he did wrong, in the relationship. So, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that
that
was
was,
so courageous, Cynthia. I got such chills when you said that. I was like, oh my God. I can't
I know.
imagine. I can't.
Yeah, it was, yeah, I couldn't believe I did it myself, but I just think it was so important for me to heal and completely in order to move forward. I just had to do the things, the steps. Sometimes you look at coaching and therapy and you're like, I ain't doing that kind of stuff. But truly, if you follow the steps and do the work, it helps. It helps you find that grace that you need.
I agree. I cannot say I did not do that text messaging part. Although I think I know what that feels like to finally let that piece go because again, we're in this it's almost like when a snake sheds its skin, it's completely vulnerable.
Hmm.
And as we're navigating this new path, um, I think for me it was just so easy to stay in survival mode because I was like, I have to make sure I have, I pay my bills, I gotta eat, I gotta get to these sessions and work, 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 work. And then finally I was in a container with other women and they had asked me, like, have you forgiven yourself for like holding on to all this shame and this guilt, which wasn't even mine to begin with.
Hmm.
And I think in that moment, when you realize that you're still holding on to this,
Hmm.
you allow yourself that space to like whether it's breathing. For me, it was crying,
Yeah,
control
yeah, yeah.
sobbing,
A lot of crying.
a lot of crying, which is very healing, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Finding being in that space and sitting there being like, huh. I think when you realize that it wasn't just it does take two. And for me, I think it was more so a moment of like, wow, I've been fighting for so long. And it was just giving myself that grace period of being like, you fought, you're fine now, you're safe. And I never really stopped to allow myself that period of like, oh, I am fine. Like I stood up for myself. I don't have to fight anymore. Like I'm safe.
Hmm.
I'll fight when I need to, but
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And in reality, had my pastor not said that, I probably wouldn't have done the whole text thing either.
yeah.
Yeah, it was just where I needed to be at that moment.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
how do you practice grace now? What does that look like for you?
It still looks the same for me, believe it or not. Even with trying to do the business part of it, it's like, I need to do this. I need to do this. Da 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 da. I'm not here. I'm not there. I'm not doing this. I haven't started my podcast. So it's like, stop, breathe, look at what you have done.
Mm,
So you get into that gratitude mode, the attitude of gratitude. And that helps me with the grace part. Give yourself some grace. You've done so much. You're still working full time. Your son's still here. You're still helping him. So yeah, you have to look for those little moments of grace when you find yourself thinking you haven't done enough. And especially for women, I guess we're always gonna have that I don't want to say it's a false cape, but the cape on. We could do it. We could do it all. Yeah. So that's what I do. I just stop and think back. And I normally I've been bad about it, but I normally do gratitude in the mornings. Um, but so and just a little side note, I work for the government, so there's been a lot going on in my mornings these days. So but yeah, you have to be thankful and grateful for where you are and find that grace. Give yourself some grace for where you are.
that's so
Hmm.
beautiful. Oh my gosh, you are a superwoman though. Like this is
No, no.
times and you're a mom. And you also gotta be, you have to be not just the working, but you're the mom and then you also yourself. And those are it's a lot of shoes to fill.
It is. It is. Well, I'm a mom of a young adult, so it's a little different. It's more of the guiding and yeah, that kind of thing.
Beautiful. And is it I recently joined, but you have a Facebook group now, right?
Yes, I do. Embracing Grace starting from here. And it's a private group for obvious reasons. I wanted it to be a safe space for people. Again, we kind of talked about how you wish you had that best friend or someone you could talk to. Well, if you don't, you can put it there. And it'll be a while, I'm sure, before people really start sharing. But I have a couple of people who are open to sharing, and I always share my story, hoping that it would help someone else. But yeah, that's why I started it, just kind of one another avenue for people to let go. Hmm.
That's
And
one.
thank you for joining. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. I think we need more of those. This is having groups like this where people are open and in a way accepting of our vulnerabilities and decisions when, as you know we have these other relationships, which you can, if you're open to sharing, but for me, there was a back and forth. Some people stayed because they were understanding of what was happening. Other people left in anger and resentment and because they had their own narratives happening. But relationships are, whether it's a friendship or with family, and then your significant other that is also leaving, it's
Hmm.
hard to find the right people to
It
love.
is. It is. It is. I had one friend, oh my God, I kind of feel like I owe her my life, but I would just go to her and just bawl and cry and whatever, and she showed no judgment. Even spent the night at her house when I was moving, but there were two people at that juncture, who were there for me when in hindsight, I was really just falling apart, and they were just there at the moment. But aside from that, there was no one, there was no Facebook groups. There was nothing, that's wow, it feels like it's been so long ago. 2016, that's almost 10 years. Yeah, it's
I,
almost 10 years. How things have changed.
it's like, whoa, it's like it feels like a lifetime, or even
It does.
you're like, oh, that, remember that?
Remember that? Yep, yep. And yeah, so I was like, well, why don't you do that and be that for people? And see how it goes. So yeah. And another big thing was kind of getting into the coaching that I chose, the coaching path, the energy. Um, if you find your positive energy, that's another way to get into your grace. And I found that my energy was not at its best or at its peak because I'm normally a happy person, but during that time, I just could not find my happiness. So I do what's called energy leadership, and it just kind of makes you look from within and move that way versus I guess trying to force it. Um and I don't even know if you could really force it. I mean, you just feel how you feel, but at some point you do have to come out of the negative energy space and move to the positive energy, and however you choose to do that. Um that's your path, but I chose this one coaching training that really looks into your energy, your core energy, as they call it. Hmm.
I'm trying to think of like, if I think it took me a long time to get out of that. Like even before I left, it was sitting in the negative, and I was like, well,
Yes.
what to do about it?
I know. I know. But it's even even in just your everyday life, it's easy to sit in the negative. You really don't have to just watch the news. It's easy to sit in the negative. But you have to find that space in it, your core energy, and say, I'm gonna make this a good day today. I'm talking to Victoria today. It can't get any better than that on a Monday. Yep.
How would you, so I'm a little curious now. When you say core energy, is that like the center of feeling, or how would you describe that?
It's more of a man, how would I describe it? It's more of a how you feel when you're in certain situations. Um, so every day if you go to work, and truthfully, it's actually in a type of an assessment that I give. But for instance, if at work you always feel like you're the middle ground, of course, is four or five. You're always at a one. How do you move yourself from that one to the three? And whether it's you want to do it that day, in 3 months, 6 months, or whatever your time frame is, how do we get from that one to that three? What do you need to do that? And then you come up with ways that you think you can do that. And sometimes it's just take breaks during the day, you know, um, talk to a coworker, meditate, pray, whatever it is, do more of that to get your energy up. So tomorrow when I come to work, I may be already at a four because it was a good day yesterday. So today I'm going to be at a four because I know what to do now.
I like that. That's a wonderful system. It's like a check-in almost.
Like a check-in almost. Yep, that's right. But then you're teaching yourself how to get from one level to the next. And then this assessment seven is the highest. But most people we kind of live in the 4 or 5 range. Yeah. So if you're way under, and divorce, of course, and separation will take you there, but you just don't want to stay there. So how can we get out of that? Yeah. So that's why I liked it because it forced me to look within myself and not look for outside things to help me.
And
Yeah. I'm sorry.
oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I could, of course, there was my pastor in that one time. There's books you can read. There's podcasts you can listen to. But at the end of the day, you have to find out what works for you and how are we going to get there. So yeah.
Absolutely. And you're right though. Like I could probably write a book with how many podcast episodes and
Uh-huh.
books I read and passages. What would you say, as we wrap up the episode, for
Mm-hmm.
someone who's listening and they are in the midst of their separation, divorce, or even just like they're at the one, whether it's the outside influences, the news, just things that are happening outside of our control?
Hmm.
What are some ways they could practice grace that doesn't look like a podcast or um, maybe even listening to us?
Well, hopefully, they may find something in us that they can reach out to us. You would be a great person to walk a divorce or separation path with for help and coaching and guiding. I'm here to do the same. But even as the gratitude is a big thing, just find one thing that you might be grateful for today. Um, One thing that you could do for yourself for today. One thing, just one thing to give yourself grace for. Yeah, that's what I would say would be the small step.
And for everyone listening, I have to let you know that even if it sounds super small, it's actually quite big in the long haul, in the long term.
That is true because you're using all your energy to do the one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
sometimes. Yeah.
it's important to include these small moments because again, you're in this period for those who are experiencing divorce, separation, or any like feelings of being, as Cynthia said, like you're at the one marker,
Hmm.
having a moment to practice gratitude, which goes very far, or even reflecting on like you're here today versus where you were a month, 6 months for us a couple years ago. It's it can be so profound and have such a beautiful impact on the direction of your day. And when you mentioned doing something for yourself, I love that. It's in a song, but I know it's from a show, but it's where they
Uh-huh.
include bits from TV into music. But the guy says, he goes, every day, once a day, give yourself presents. Like, and he goes, and he says it's super small. He's like, whether it's a coffee at the local coffee shop or taking a stroll for 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And the guy comments and he goes, it's like Christmas. And he's like, yeah. And
But it's
wow,
true.
I
It's
forget.
true.
Yeah, this was so
I
wonderful.
love that. It was. I'm so glad you invited me. I'm so honored to be on your show. So proud of you.
I'm so
Yeah,
proud of us. We've come so far, and from even our own experiences with separation and divorce, and then navigating, growing and being independent, but still striving for the better and how we can make an impact in someone else's life.
that's right. That's right.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Cynthia. I'm
You're
so,
welcome.
so blessed to have you. For everyone listening, I don't know about you, but Cynthia
Hmm.
has such a soothing voice. Like I feel so smooth right now.
Same for you. Same
Like,
for you.
and I will put in the show notes how you can get in contact with Cynthia and her beautiful spaces and for more information on embracing grace. And we'll see you all in the next episode.
Thank you, Victoria.